Good evening. I'm Deborah Smith-Barney, guest host tonight for the special Detroit Black Journal, City for Youth edition. Tonight, you find us at a new time, new day, and with a new set. And starting Monday, October 28th, we will premiere with a new host, so stay tuned. But tonight, we examine the Black church and the pastoring of its children. Has the church met the call? Father George Clements of Chicago, a Catholic priest, decided that he would adopt a child in order to set an example and inspire his congregation to open up their hearts and homes to needy children. Let's listen to what Father Clements has to say.
One Church, One Child is a movement that seeks to involve every church that's located within the Black communities of America. What we are asking from every church is that at least one family in that church come forth and finalize the adoption of at least one child. The key players that are in this program are, first of all, the ministers, because the ministers have the responsibility of encouraging the congregation to come forth and adopt or take in a foster child. So the ministers are crucial to this program. The ministers are the ones who take the program to other churches, and the ministers are the ones who interpret the program in the light of the Gospels. Another key player would, of course, be the social worker, the worker for the state or for the county. And they have the job of working with the ministers so that they can funnel these children through the churches into the homes of the people. And to do this, they have to have a great sensitivity toward the enormity of the problem. Another key player, of course, would be the family itself that's going to take in this child. And that family has to know that they are being involved in the most important work on the face of this earth, and that is giving a human being a chance, the most precious object on the face of this earth, giving that entity a chance to have a decent home. And then lastly, of course, the player would be the children themselves, because they are going to benefit from this. Child psychologists, pediatricians all tell us that the first years of a human being's life are the most important. And what happens in those first years are going to really tell you the bent of the life of that entire of that child for the rest of his life. And so it's very important that that child would have the security of a permanent home.
Joining me in the studio to discuss this issue is the Reverend Jim Holley from Little Rock Baptist Church, Father Ron Spann from the Messiah Church, Deacon Reginald Dokes of Fellowship Chapel, and Mother Gertrude Stacks of Shalom Temple. Welcome.
Good evening.
Historically, Black folks have taken care of our own. When we came up from the South, those who were already here took us into their homes and made us feel comfortable until we could get settled. What has happened to that generosity, Mother?
I think time always brings a change. And circumstances always, make our personalities change and make our lifestyle change. Circumstances will make the whole world turn around. One minute we have money, next minute we're poor. So the circumstance changes the whole time. It's simply time.
The mores and the values of our society, we all know they've changed a great deal. Has the church become a victim of those changing mores, or are there areas in which the church is being victorious, Reverend Holley?
Well, I think that perhaps, Deborah, is a combination of the two, and I'm not quite sure which one is really winning. We like to think, of course, that we've been victorious, but I think that we must understand that the church, which sort of, a lot of people think that we're the panacea for everything, that we have a whole lot of competition out there that we didn't have before. I think partly answering to your other question to some degree, and I hope it's not misunderstood, but I think integration has had an effect in terms of the unity that we once had, because we couldn't go across the track, because we couldn't basically integrate into a culture and into a society, and we lost a lot of our values that we really held our unit and our extension family that stayed together, and the church provided for that. I would like to think that we are victorious, but obviously we're having some problems, and I would be insulting your audience intelligence as well as yours if I try to pretend that we've done the job that God really has set out for us to do. We are lacking in that, but I think there's a reason for it, and I think it's because in the inner city we need resources. And when you talk about a city like Detroit, where you're talking about 70% of the population is on a fixed income, you want us to make something out of nothing, and it's very difficult to do that. But I think we're really working hard, and even more so now, to make a difference.
Okay, you've talked about the fact that the church used to provide some of those nurturing kinds of things. Can anyone be more specific? What historically has the church meant to the black community?
Well, for one thing, certainly it's been a social reality. Sometimes it might be an entire community from down south that's moved up south and might find each other near a local neighborhood and who formed a church and even keep the same name of the church. So there's some social continuity there. Generations would come one behind the other. We now have the mobility, whether it's because of integration, it's our changing economic status in some cases, so that not only do we have white flight out, but we even have black flight out, following those opportunities, draining leadership, draining some social balance out of our communities. And so you no longer have children growing up in the same neighborhood necessarily coming behind mom and dad in the same church to continue to populate it and so on. And when you mix that with the fact that a lot of us now have our buildings based in neighborhoods, but we're not necessarily neighborhood churches. Okay, we got a building in the neighborhood, but that's not the same as being a neighborhood church. And we've got this mobile society. And that's one thing that comes to mind to me. But meantime, we've provided a social reality, an economic reality,
and a political reality
reality too.
Absolutely.
Everything that goes into making a community, a cultural reality. We were the vessel of transmitting the culture generation to generation.
Okay. Mr. Dokes, we haven't heard from you. What is the Black Church teaching today?
Well, speaking for Fellowship Chapel, we have two programs for our young men and our young women. For our young women, we have what we call the Intojani Institute, and for our young men, we have what we call the Suthu Institute. Both of these programs are very significant, and we talk about these programs with great pride at Fellowship Chapel, because we're teaching these young people about their culture, about their history, which is very important when you talk about self-esteem and trying to survive in a world that at sometimes can be very cruel and very vicious. But at Fellowship Chapel, we're trying to meet the needs of our young people. In addition to teaching them their history and their culture, we expose them to positive role models in the community to let them know that they can do it if they set their mind to it.
Okay. The question is, do kids today believe in the religion? Let's take a look at the views we found on the streets.
Religion doesn't affect my life because I don't go to church. And I don't know why I don't go to church. Well, church affect my life by, see, I believe in God, and when you believe in God and whatever you want and whatever you think you can do, if you just believe in Him, He'll help you out with it. And if you go to church and you believe in God and get saved, you'll be living the right way, and living the right way is the good way.
It's scary to me sometimes, because some of the stuff they say is it's scary, because like death and time stopping and all the other kind of stuff. I don't want to. It's just scary to me.
Religion affects my life because I believe that by praying it helped me get me through the day, that it'll prevent me from the crime that's going on in the areas.
Yes, I do believe in God, but I don't go to church.
Religion affects my life in a way that I go to church and I don't associate with people who too much don't go to church, and with those who do things that they know is wrong. I go a certain limit, and after that I don't go anymore. I live my life pretty much by the Bible.
Well, religion affects my life
I believe in God and all that. Ever since I was young, I was raised up in the church. I attend church now. I'm in the choir and all that, on the usher board.
I do not go to church. And also I love and respect all my peers without even going to church. And I respect each other, people, around me. And I know what, about church and everything because I used to go every day.
That's me. I'm not, no drug dealer or, stuff like that, because that's like, that's just the wrong thing to do.
Religion do affect my life because I do go to church like every Sunday. Right now I'm thinking about joining the choir, and it affects my life because before it's like I just go to church just to be going, just to say I'm there. But now ever since the incident happened in my family, and I should say it was something like a miracle because it wouldn't have happened without God and praying.
Church don't affect my life because I don't go. But I believe in God, and I believe in going to church, but I just don't go very often.
I'm going to ask all of you briefly to tell me what are some of the church programs which our local churches are using to address the needs of our youth. Let's start with you, Reverend Holley.
Well, the Little Rock Baptist Church, and we're doing the best that we can. I have a mass church. I don't have a class church, and it's very difficult when your resources are very limited. I think all of us can testify to that. We are pushing, in fact, this Sunday, where we are guaranteeing all of our high school students a college education. Wow. We created a program called the Tree of Life Foundation, where members of our church are starting an insurance program, and which will give us in approximately 10 years something like a $5 to $7 million leverage. So that's we are adopting a one church, one school program, where we are challenging all the other churches in the city of Detroit to adopt at least one school. We have adopted Loving Elementary School, for example, to supply them with whatever needs they may have as far as their students are concerned. And we think that if every church adopt a school rather than a student or a kid, that a lot more can be helped by it. We must get back into the neighborhood. I think we're losing a lot of an opportunity to witness for our Lord and Savior by not being involved in our neighborhood rather than being a metropolitan church. I think in addition to that, we started our own cookie called the Country Preacher Cookie, which was created a CHIP Foundation. We have 48 kids that are in colleges and universities across this country where we support them with our cookie program, where our women in our church, develop that. In addition to that, we have homework centers around the city where kids come out of the middle school and go into a homework center and stay there 2 or 3 hours working so that when they get home, they don't have to deal with the competition that they're going to find in their home. Then they can look beyond the immediate environment and look 6 years down the road when we pick them up in the 6th grade so that they'll be able to go to college and look forward to that. I know you said be brief, and I'll stop at that. But it's a lot that so many of us are doing in this city that we just don't have the resources. If we can hook up with corporate America, if we can hook up with government and understand that we must work public and privately to be able to help. It's not enough just to say help yourself and not give us the resources to do it. And this is the kind of things that we're trying to make a dent at the Little Rock Baptist Church.
You sound wonderful. Father Spann, could you tell us what's going on? We heard about some of the exciting things at Fellowship Chapel. Just in case I have run out of time, let me see what's happening over here at the Messiah Church.
Well, we're trying to hit the kids, especially at 2 levels, at the junior, senior level, the secondary, and then down on the elementary kids. And we have what we call a pioneer club for the younger kids so that they can be there just about every day of the week for a combination of tutorial and academic development. There's some social development in that and being together. They get Bible classes, and in the summer we extend that into camping and other kinds of opportunities. But meantime, it's hitting them with the tutors and developing a kind of learning center. So I trust that maybe what Brother Holley was talking about, the homework centers would be comparable to what we're trying to develop there. And moving with the teens, it's a similar thing where they're being developed through tutoring, through mentoring, through the social opportunity, involving them physically, turning them loose on the basketball court, again, the Bible instruction and so on. Something holistic so that we can engage the whole person, work economic opportunities in the summer especially.
Wonderful. Well, Mr. Dokes, as you know, we've had lots of conversation about all-male academies. Tell us a little bit more about what's going on at Fellowship Chapel in terms of your focus on the black male.
Well, the Suthu Institute, which basically means bringing boys into manhood, which is based on the African tradition of the Xhosa people, is a program that we, again, are very proud of, in which we take our young men and we break them up into different age groups, but we do that after the young men have been exposed to a guest speaker, and that speaker may be speaking on the importance of voting, or that speaker may be speaking on how important it is to be economically independent. That speaker may be speaking on how important it is to get a college education. And after that speaker he or she has presented their material, we break the boys up into groups and we discuss what is going on. We take the boys camping. It's just a number of things that we do for these young boys. We tutor them with their homework, which is also very important. As you said, there has been a lot of talk about the male academies because it is no secret that our young black boys need all the help that they can get.
You know, you go back to the Great Depression. I mean, years ago, when people really and truly didn't have anything. They didn't know literally where their next meal was coming from. And yet, they didn't have the problem of homeless children because they knew how important it was that these children all be given homes. So when somebody says to me, well, you know, Father, after all, I just can't afford to do it. And I say, how did your grandmammy and your grandpappy do it? Back there when times really were hard.
Yeah. Now let me ask this question. How far can the church or any social institution go to instill moral values and discipline in young men and in young women?
Well, see, Deborah, you know, the thing about it is, and I think we have to be so careful because, you know, for every situation that happens in this country, we just can't say the church or to try to fill that bill. You know, like in legislature today, they're trying to make it law that male academies will be legal. They're trying to do it by law. 46% of young black males are in some type of judicial system. We got more kids in jails, young men in jails than we have in colleges and universities. Yeah. It is an endangered species. And I think what we have to understand is that it's our tax dollars. And we got to somehow use our influence to make sure our tax dollars in this city is going to do what need to be done in terms of educating and saving females, males. It doesn't really matter. Whatever the situation is, we got to adjust to it. I think also that if it's necessary, several of the churches ought to start coming together and stop competing with each other.
That's right.
Stop basically dealing against each other and work together. If 20 of us put our money in one bank, it'll make a tremendous difference in terms of the leverage of creating or buying property or creating jobs or buying a school and putting a male academy or female academy or whatever the situation would be. But I think it has to be some creative adjustment on our part to allow God to use us to make a difference in this city.
And this is a day of softness. You know, you don't see that macho strength. And so there's a fear that's with young men today, and they don't know why. They don't know why they have this fear. Even when they try to, let's say I'm gonna go to college, I'm gonna go to school, but when the time to go to service or go to the Army, you can see the panic. They panic because they haven't been through any of the hard, you know, the hard trials and come through yourself. They always go to mama or go to dad or go and steal it or go take it. You know, there's never was a place where they can build a strength on their own. So they have a fear. They have a sham. They have front. They have great front. This is why you see the big chain that wear all of them. You know, wear everything.
But I think we're missing also the family values that we have lost. In gaining what we wanted, we've lost what we had. And that's the family values. I mean, there are things that are happening to our families that never would have happened in my generation. I mean, just, you know, I'm in my 40s. That never would have taken place. I mean, we've lost the family values. Where having children at a teenage, there's no shame to that anymore. Or going to jail as a teenager or getting in trouble, there's no shame on the family's name anymore. It is that where the church, I think, can have a tremendous input. and play a tremendous part in terms of trying to get back to the values
Right.
that we once had and somehow let go in terms of our heritage, in terms of what we really brought to this country.
Right.
We've lost all of that, and that's the reason why Fellowship is trying to regain it with their program,
Right.
and other of us are trying to do what we can in terms of our programs.
You know,
I
also,
think-
I just wanted
yeah.
to make the point, being a young person, as you can see, to a large degree, many of us have lost that sense of to whom much is given, much is required. And that's one thing that was instilled in me as a youth in the church. When you speak of the male academies, as Reverend Holley suggested, if more churches could come together, pool their resources, their monies, and form institutions that educate our young men and our young women, we wouldn't have to be worrying about the powers that be to pull the strings to say, hey, we don't want this program to have any success.
Right.
You know, so we have to be economically independent and really save our children because they are our future.
Deborah, I also think, in keeping with all this, that there is a role that only the church can play. We are free to proclaim life over and against death, which is the basic spiritual value. You know, that's the basic struggle of Scripture, life versus death, resurrection over death. And like I said, it's the values and things even almost aren't going to work for us until we bring life. You can't teach good manners to a cadaver. First, you got to get it alive, and then you teach it good manners. And there's death. There's a death of spirit in our community, and I think that's the thing we can occupy uniquely to be holistic, to get to the spirit of the person, and then to develop these.
Can the city live again, so to speak? Yeah, you're right.
We've talked about some of our younger men and younger women, but we've got a lot of teenaged and older men in prison.
Yes.
Let's talk about pastoring to the prison inmates.
But what we created is called our Alpha program at Little Rock, where we've asked the judge for the Second Chance program, where they got a choice of going to jail or coming to the church, and they work out their reciprocity through the church program, where they have to go to school and have to attend. We have to, in other words, they spend 9 months with us. And we've seen a tremendous change with that. Obviously, that doesn't go for those who have committed, who are over 18. We're talking about those kids who are from 14 to 16 that we're trying to make a difference in. It's amazing to me when you talk about those who are in prison, we always send the worst talent that we have in our churches to do prison ministry. It would seem to me that if you got a captive audience there, that's the place that you send your trained seminarian, PhDs, your soul winners. I mean, if that's the place where the technician need to be, it ought to be there to try to make a change, because obviously you're going to have their attention for quite a while. And that, to me, is one of the things that I always see that we fail in terms of really trying to make a difference.
So how do you handle that in your church?
Well, we have a jail ministry, you know, and that we're very active there. And we try to work very hard. The letters we receive in terms of trying to find them work to get them back in. But they must understand it's just not having a job. It is about having a change. You've been chained. Now you need to change in order to make a difference in your life. And so we work hard on that. But again, the economy doesn't help you because there's nothing out here. You understand what I'm saying? If there's no real incentive for a guy to come out and who's been trained to make license plates, and he comes out into, and there's no license plate jobs.
As we know, over the last several years, there have been a lot of crises within the televangelistic community. They have seen mismanagement of funds, sexual kinds of problems with some of the big televangelists, and often these young people carry those feelings about that mismanagement over to the local community. Can they still find role models within the church?
You know, and I must jump in here, because you know, the thing about it is, when I hear that, and obviously it's embarrassing to all of us, and all of us, if it wasn't for the grace of God, there's no telling where we would be. But there are bad doctors. There's so many doctors in jail. There's so many lawyers in jail. There are people selling drugs out of the White House. There are some of the most intelligent, bright people in the country are in jail somewhere or have fallen from their throne. when I look and see what happened to the SNL situation, when you look and see BCI, when you look and see Wall Street, you know, and preachers are human. We're just an instrument that God used.
Touching on it that way, I think, is significant in that because we're not just talking about clergy as role models, we're talking about a people. What's the African proverb? It takes a village to raise a child. You know, we need this context of community, a network of relationships to bring the kids up in, and that is hurting in the black community.
I've talked to a lot of doctors, lawyers, professional people. They're just people that has degrees for a natural world. When you're dealing with souls, you're dealing with spirit. Like my husband, he got saved in jail. He saved in Korea, down in the dungeon with shotguns outside the door. And right now, he can go into the jail and reach people that, hey, I've been there. Yeah. And you know what? They feel comfortable when you have been with them. They're gonna feel like you're so high up in the air and I can't reach you, you know, but you've been down here with me. You know what it is to be in the ghetto? Yes, I have. Yes, Lord bless me. I can wear some decent clothes now, but don't mean nothing. What God has done to my spirit and what I can do by the power of God is more money. You can't pay for it. You can't pay for that. So the main thing I'm trying to get into the children now, have some worth, some substance. You raised in the ghetto. Your father may be a drunkard. Your mother may be on crack, but you are an individual. Stand up and be what you are born. Thank you. Thank you.
I know being a teacher in the Detroit public school system, I find myself being not only a teacher, a preacher, motivator, you name it, I am that. And because I see firsthand, this is reality.
Yeah.
These young people come into the classroom situation and their minds are elsewhere.
Yeah.
I tell them all the time, young people, I stand before you representative of what the media says does not exist. A black man who is employed, a black man who is drug-free,
Yes.
and a black man who is in touch with his spiritual self.
The City for Youth program, which includes a pulpit exchange, is hoping to open up and revitalize the church into action. We leave you both, the clergy and the laypersons, with the following information about the programs presented here tonight. Please examine yourself and your life. Open up your heart and your mind, and at least call and find out what you can do. To reach the One Church, One Child program of Michigan, call 1-800-632-4180. To reach Fellowship Chapel regarding their programs for black males, call 538-8695. To inquire and get more information about the City for Youth program, call 876-8104. And for general information, write Detroit Black Journal at 7441 2nd Boulevard, Detroit, Michigan 48202. We implore you to join us next week, same time, for the second installment of the special Detroit Black Journal, City for Youth, when we will see the perceptions our black youth have of our city. We leave you now with some final thoughts from Father Clements. I'm Deborah Smith-Barney. Have a good evening.
When you have a strong family life, then first of all, you have two parents. You have both a mother and a father. And they are working for the nuclear family. They're working to take care of their own family, and they are at the same time instilling in their biological family the importance of the extended family.